Back to square one after a year and a half. Egypt's Supreme Court dissolves the country's parliament and allows Mubarak's former prime minister to run for president. Two contentious rulings have plunged the country into political turmoil. Where does this leave Egypt's transition to democracy and the once fervent hopes of a revolution? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Hosni Mubarak. Now, the latest twists and turns of Egypt's troubled transition since the fall of Hosni Mubarak 16 months ago have left many wondering where the country is heading next. A cloud of uncertainty now hangs over its political future after two decisions handed down on Thursday. The Muslim Brotherhood has warned that Egypt's fragile democratic gains are under threat after a court ruling that dissolved the religious-dominated parliament. The Supreme Constitutional Court has also upheld the right of Ahmed Shafiq, the last prime minister in Hosni Mubarak's government, to run for president. It leaves Egypt with no parliament and concentrates power even more firmly in the hands of the generals who took over from Mubarak. And all of this ahead of a scheduled runoff election to choose the new president this weekend. Shireen Tadros reports.
A political earthquake just days before a vote to decide Egypt's next president. The Supreme Court rulings were met with anger. The court threw out a law that could have disqualified Ahmed Shafiq, Mubarak's former prime minister, from the presidential elections. It also ruled that Parliament's lower house, dominated by the Muslim Brotherhood, was invalid.
This decision is a farce. We know the parliament is useless, but how can the court leave Shafiq in the race? We won't allow for another dictator to bring back the old ruling party and state security to crush the people.
We can't expect anything from a state that wants to impose Shafiq against our will. We can't expect it to defend our revolution. The only way is to go back to the streets.
Neither of these decisions were particularly surprising, but at the end of the day, this court has decided to keep in the presidential race a former member of Mubarak's regime, whilst dissolving the only elected authority in the country.
At a news conference that looked more like a victory speech, Shafiq said the country had made a historic decision by keeping him in the race.
Long gone are the days of targeting political figures by tailoring laws to destroy their reputation and violate the rights of our citizens. And we will never, ever from now on humiliate the laws of this land.
A very different reaction from both the Brotherhood and liberal forces, some of whom called the court's decisions basically a military coup.
If there is any foul play, there will be a revolution against the criminals and against those who protect criminals. We will revolt until the goals of the January 25th revolution are fully achieved.
On Wednesday, the government decided to give the military extrajudicial powers to arrest civilians. Now, with no lower house of parliament, the military rulers have again assumed all legislative authority. With Ahmed Shafiq, a former military officer, firmly in place for Saturday's runoff vote, and with no parliament or constitution in place, it's a nightmare scenario for Egypt's revolutionaries. The new president is set to have even more powers and less oversight than his predecessor, who hundreds died bringing down. Shireen Tadros, Al Jazeera, Cairo.
Well, the Constitutional Court decisions on Thursday were the latest in a series of events that have shaken the Egyptian political scene over the last couple of months. Let's take a look at some of them now. After excluding a dozen candidates, a final list of 13 vying for the top job was released in April. On April 23rd, Egypt's Military Council approved a law banning former top officials from running for president. But a couple of days later, Egypt's Election Commission allowed Hosni Mubarak's former Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq back into the presidential race after it had initially disqualified him. On May 28th, no candidate had managed to win 50% of the vote, so the election committee said that Morsi and Shafiq would proceed to the second round of Egypt's first presidential vote on June 16th and 17th, having each won the most votes. On Wednesday, just one day before the ruling, the Minister of Justice granted the military the powers to arrest and detain civilians. So what is left of the Egyptian revolution? Well, to help us answer this question and a whole lot more, we hope, we're joined by our guests, all of them from Cairo. Dr. Sherif El-Hagan, Professor of Conflict Management at the American University in Cairo. Dr. Maged Rida Botros, Political Science Professor at Al-Halwan University. And Ahmed Naguib, co-founder of the Council of Trustees of the Revolution in Egypt. Good to have you all with us. Maged Rida Botros, if I could start with you. Was this, as many people are saying, a soft military coup, a power grab by the Supreme Council of Armed Forces?
As a political analyst, I would say that SCAF, the Supreme Council for Armed Forces, is the most concerned party to hand over the executive authorities as well as the remnant legislative authorities to the newly elected president. So I don't believe that it's a soft coup. Another evidence of this is the Supreme Constitutional Court has already dissolved the parliament twice before in the contemporary history of Egypt. The last one is about, I believe, it was in 1990. So that's not the first time it happens. It's judicial independence, and I believe that when the Supreme Constitutional Court takes such a decision, a major decision, so it has nothing to do with the SCAF or the authority that's ruling the country.
But when you look at the fact that the Supreme Constitutional Court is made up of judges who are all appointed by Hosni Mubarak, and when you look at the decision that was made a day before that allows the Supreme Council of Armed Forces to arrest and detain civilians at any point in time, and the fact that the parliament is largely dominated by Islamists and by the Muslim Brotherhood, is it surprising then that so many people are saying that this is a military coup by another means, that this is a soft power grab?
Now, let me state two facts. The first fact is that all members of the Supreme Constitutional Courts all over the world are appointed by the president. If you go back to when George Bush Jr. was elected, most of the judges were appointed by Bush Sr., his father. So we can take this as an evidence. That's the first issue. The second issue is that if you look at the Egyptian law, you will find that we have many positions, many posts. Civil servants have such arrest warrants called judicial arrest warrants, such as the people in the customs, the people of the electricity authority. So we are not, I believe, when I saw it, the first fact is that it's given to more than one type of posts. The second thing is that the military police have to go, the officers have to go through the judicial procedures, like resorting to the police station if they arrest anybody, and continue on following the same procedures when they arrest any citizens. This is not only given to the military police, it's given to several posts in the civil servants, as well as it's not only given authority to those people, complete authority. I mean.
Sherif Hagan, how do you define what the court did on Thursday?
Well, in my opinion, the best description is a sort of a coup in disguise, if that's the right word. I have evidence about this. And when I say evidence, I mean we don't have really facts and data. We're all speculating, so we have to talk within this speculation and analysis. It was the regime, the generals who prepared the constitutional declaration, and it was the generals who prepared the law, which was ruled non-constitutional. I mean, there is a lot of hints here. Also, There was judges who prepared the law, the elections law, who are members of the Constitutional Court, who should have been filtering any non-constitutional possibilities. Adding to that, the declaration which nobody believed 2 months ago of Saad al-Katatni of the Muslim Brotherhood, that the Prime Minister said to him that the abolition of parliament decision is ready in the drawers to be issued at any time. And actually Ayman al-Sayyad, a respectable Democrat, yesterday on Al Jazeera, yesterday in the evening, he said that we did not believe the Muslim Brotherhood. We criticized them when they said that. And now we understand why they promoted a person, one of the Muslim Brotherhood, for presidential election, because they were told parliament will be abolished. So if what the Muslim Brotherhood declared 2 months ago, and there is evidence it was correct and true now by the ruling of Constitutional Court yesterday, then we can understand that it is not that innocent what's happening. I wouldn't say it's innocent.
Let me
call
put,
it coup or something else. Yeah.
Let me put this to you, Sharif Hagan. If you are you surprised, firstly, that Mohammed Morsi, the candidate for the political wing of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Freedom of Justice Party, that he agreed to continue these elections, even though he didn't agree with this decision? Why is he continuing with the campaign if he and his followers believe the system is so rigged? I mean, isn't there a contradiction there?
It seems to be a contradiction, but last night, I'm amazed that you asked me this question. I'm glad that you asked me, and also amazed, because last night I searched with my friends about phone numbers of many Muslim Brotherhood and other Egyptians, patriots, and I sent 9 messages begging them and asking them to consider, to review, to study and analyze in such a short period the withdrawal of Morsi. But of course there are risks for whichever decision. If you withdraw from the elections, you give it to Shafiq, and people will accuse the Muslim Brotherhood they did not want to take part in the democratic elections. And if they don't withdraw, they are accused to be traitors of the revolution. I wouldn't know what to do if I were them.
All right, Ahmed Naguib, I know that you and the group you represent are not happy with this decision at all, and I'm sure you're going to tell me why, but I also want to know whether you feel that this perhaps now galvanizes your movement again to continue the campaign to see through Egypt's revolution, or will people now despair because of this?
Well, let me tell you first of all that the youth of the revolution are quite disenchanted with both the Muslim Brotherhood and the military council. Both have not presented any evidence that they really do care for the future of this country, and we are this future of this country. We've been marginalized by both entities before and after the revolution. They're not listening to us. A big group of young activists yesterday went to demonstrate in front of the Muslim Brotherhood's headquarters, and they wanted to start a sit-in to convince the Brotherhood to withdraw Morsi from the elections. Now, they're not listening because they're still living the same, they're functioning based on the same modus operandi that they've been functioning on since the beginning of the revolution. They have an agenda, they want to complete it, but they fail to see that they have been falling in each and every trap that they've been, that were devised for them to fall into. Now, we're saying that they need to withdraw. I mean, even if Shafiq comes through a referendum, that he will come a discredited president, that the 3/4 of the nation is against him. He will, if he comes through a referendum. But the whole point is that both the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a traditional and classical, movement, very conservative, as well as the military council, an extension of the Mubarak regime, they both have been head-to-head in this conflict, and they've done nothing but to preserve their interest at the expense of the national interest.
Yeah, let's put that back to
and yes, it has mobilized people on the streets again.
Let's put that back to Dr. Sharif Hagan then. I mean, the perception of the Muslim Brotherhood is that when it comes to a choice between trying to preserve their power and professing their principles of the revolution and so on, whatever principles they may have had get put aside, and it becomes the usual trying to preserve their interests trumps anything else. What do you say to that?
In my opinion, I go back to a research which was published in Foreign Policy on the 7th of February 2011, and on the 9th of February 2012 in the Foreign Affairs magazines, esteemed magazines, that the regime has succeeded in playing a divide and rule thing between the Egyptians, and now everybody considers that the Muslim Brotherhood are not revolutionaries. That's why they were prevented from practicing any political rights for 60 years. They were the real revolutionaries, actually, and others followed them in the last 4 or 5 years. That's my opinion, of course. One of the traps, which I call a trap, which the regime used, was the civil state trap. In the Islamic theory, there is nothing called divine sanction for the rulers. But still, many so-called liberals and Democrats consider that the Islamic Sharia calls for divine sanction. This is not correct, and I asked them to show evidence. Now, in my opinion, Egypt has been subjected to an accident in the road and needs to be taken to an intensive care unit, and what many are doing is blaming each other who caused the accident. We should hurry up and take Egypt to the intensive care unit and not just blame and accuse each other. The second point
well, it's
is
not
that
about, hold on a second. It's not about blame here. The question I'm asking you is the perception that a lot of people have in Egypt, opponents of the Muslim Brotherhood on many sides of the political debate, who say that when your group was in a position of power, when they won the parliamentary elections and were in a position to do something, what they basically did was monopolize the process and essentially run roughshod over the views of other people in that parliament, like the liberals and the secularists and so on. Basically, you had your chance and you blew it. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, it's not my group, by the way, because I was asked this morning by Al Jazeera whether I was affiliated with them, and I said, no, I'm not affiliated with any political party, so they are not my group. I am an Islamist, but they are not my group. This is very important to declare now. In my opinion, every political faction in any part of the world looks for power, not for its self-interest, but for the interest of the people. You don't go for no power to serve the people. Let's look at the French today. The left has won the president, but they did not leave the seats of the parliament for the right. They're still trying to get the maximum number of seats in the parliament. The same thing applies to, of course, the parliamentary system of the UK. The same was for the first 2 years in Obama ruling. Nobody, when he gets the president, leaves the other seats. The second point is, where is the other political faction in Egypt that has a weight in the street? When we go to the parliament, they succeeded. And it was astonishing to us that the black horse, the Salafists, achieved the second position. Where are the liberals and the leftists? Because they were not in touch with the street. They just talk about theories and media and blame and accuse and accuse others of being traitors to the revolution, but they don't want to listen. They accuse the Muslim Brotherhood of not listening, and every faction now is not listening to the other. And as I said before, we're leaving Egypt to die in the street rather than taking Egypt to the intensive care unit to try to save it. This is not the right way of doing things.
Magid Ridabotros, there's going to be a president now after these elections with none of the powers written under the Constitution, because there has been no agreement on a new Constitution yet. A president without a parliament. How is this going to be dealt with? I mean, it seems as if, to a lot of outside observers, all of this is being done in the wrong order.
For any political system, you need 3 pillars. You build the political system on 3 pillars. Those 3 pillars are judicial, executive, and legislative. Now, after the parliament is dissolved, we don't have legislative authority. Then it goes back to the SCAF. That's one. The second is we don't have still any executive authority. It's temporarily in the hands of SCAF till the newly president is taking office, and they hand over the power to him. Still, what powers he has to obtain and he has to exercise, nobody knows. Still, we need a constitutional declaration till the permanent constitution is prepared.
But what if
the third pillar?
Yeah, go ahead. Just finish your third point.
Let me. Well, the third pillar is the judicial branch or authority. The judicial authority is still, they need to change the structure of the judicial authority to be elected. The DAs should be elected. The Attorney General should be elected. Many restructuring in the authorities and institutions of the judicial authority.
All right.
So, in essence, this is a political turmoil because we did not start with the right way to start with a constitution that draws and sets the way to build up effective
What if
one.
Mohammed Morsi wins the presidential election? Will SCAF accept that?
Well, let's forget about names now. Morsi or Shafiq, we are talking about institutions now. If we don't have the institutions, the setup, if we don't have the structure, the names would differ less. I do not give a lot of attention to names. I'm very much concerned of the fluid system of lack of institutions now. We are playing in a maze now. We have to have solid, crystallized constitution, structure. The names comes second. Now, if Morsi comes in, nobody would ever object to that. The SCAF cannot object to that. This would be the second revolution if they try to reverse the trend in the street. If he's elected, so he's the legitimate president of Egypt. We have all to abide to that.
Let me go back to Ahmed Naguib now. How do you see your group dealing with this right now? Because it's no secret that this is not the best choice that your supporters have in this election between the two candidates that are in this runoff. So how does this play out for you then?
Well, first of all, it's very frustrating. The whole nation is frustrated because both Shafiq and Morsi and who they represent, the old Mubarak regime and the Brotherhood, do not present or make the dreams of those who went on the streets since the 25th of Jan till now. Our dreams are not present in their programs. They're both either going to have cosmetic changes or changes that are not adequate enough for the nation's dream. They don't really present any real progressive forces. They're both traditional forces. They're both two faces for the same coin. And however, they're not both equal in terms of moral and ethical grounds. Shafiq is a representative of a regime that killed its people, oppressed its people, embezzled its people. The Brotherhood represents a group that will marginalize and ostracize the rest of the nation forces. So we're very disenchanted with the process. However, if worse comes to worse, I will cast my vote for Morsi. But that's not what I have dreamt for. This is not what I risked my life for. It is a process that has really failed the nation. And I think the military council is more or less trying to derail this process so that it can buy more time to have a more convenient situation whereby we don't necessarily have to deal with Morsi or Shafiq. But there's more pressure internally and externally to go ahead with the process. The Brotherhood have been practicing political stupidity for more than a year and a half right now, falling into those traps. And if they think with all the might and all the powers of the military council and the lack of transparency with the judiciary that they will win these elections that easily, then they are mistaken. I would love to be wrong about that, but it is not, unfortunately, the process that we have dreamt for, and I think people won't find it easy to accept either, and there will be problems. There is always talk about a coup if Morsi comes, and there's always talk about more instability if Shafiq comes.
All right, that is going to have to be the last word. We will be watching very closely what does happen in Egypt over the coming days and weeks. But for now, thanks very much to all of our guests in Cairo, Sharif El-Haggan, Magid Ridabotros, and Ahmed Naguib. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Remember, if you want to send us your feedback, you can just email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. I'm Hazem Sika. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.